Hello everyone, how you guys doing? Hopefully you guys are having a wonderful day, and today we are here with a video on 8 tips to help your flips in old school RuneScape. I mean, as you can tell, I'm credible because I have a lot of money in my inventory. That's all you need to know. And I'm wearing 3rd age, so everything checks out. These tips will 100% work, but these are actually tips more so for people that have been flipping for a little bit. If you're looking for like a beginner's guide on flipping or a video on what items in particular you should flip, luckily I have a video on both of those, so you can feel free to check those out in the description below. But this video, actually, they'll be up in the top right. I can do that, the little ad cards thing up here. Give it a peek. So, I mean, I've flipped a lot in this game. I mean, I started off with the flipping series on this channel, and I kind of do flipping every now and then for fun. Eventually, might be another little flipping series, you know, a little tease there, but I've done a decent bit. So hopefully you guys think that these tips are helpful, and just know that they've come from a place where I've had to experience this a bunch. I'm not going to be able to recreate the scenarios that I'm talking about. These are kind of just general things that you'll find in your flipping that, you know, just come at all different times. You really can't anticipate most of them, and you just kind of have to deal with it accordingly. So let's go ahead and get into 8 different tips for your flips. So the first tip is that winners don't lose. So if you're actually someone that is serious about flipping and you want to make real money off doing it, that doesn't mean you're always going to have successful flips. I've had plenty of flips, and I mean plenty, that have blown up in my face. So what you have to take away from the unsuccessful flips is what you did wrong or what was going on in the market as a whole that caused your flip to be unsuccessful. You have to at least try. If you don't try to understand what's going wrong, then you'll never learn from it. You'll never get better as a flipper. So reflect on why something happened to you, and then if you can, if you're able to make that mental leap, try to find out how you could avoid that in the future. What types of things you can do to keep yourself safe from potential things like that. Again, now we'll go through some of those things, but this is a baseline for all of flipping. This is something that is going to help you everywhere. Just don't take a loss and then move on to the next one. Try to figure out what you did wrong. And then the second tip is whenever you're kind of feeling, you know, a little ballsy, new items are definitely iffy. As far as new items, I would really recommend you have experience with high-priced items in low volume, just so you can get an idea as far as how those items work in general. They're not the same as your average gear that you'd be flipping, or even good gear that you'd be flipping, you know? Flipping 3rd age druidic stuff will give you a lot better idea as far as how the new items work, since there are barely any in the game. People kind of pay whatever because no one really knows the price. It's a lot different than something like, you know, a Sanguine Esty staff, where the price is fixed. People know what it's worth. Maybe it goes up and down here or there, but people know relatively what it's worth. This is an entire different ball game. So if the item starts dropping a lot, trying to flip it and get your flip right is going to be difficult. You're also probably going to lose a lot of money, which will keep you resentful of selling it, so you might even start to lose more and more money. It's just what comes with the volatility of it all. And you have to also understand how much this would probably be worth to people. You have to be really informed of what's going on the day of release, how the drop rate's looking for this item, how it fits into different metas. There's just so many different things you have to have ironed out before you can even get to flipping new items comfortably. So I'd say for almost everyone, it is definitely not the way to go. But if you're extremely experienced, then, you know, you can breach that gap. And then the third one is pretty simple, but just insanely helpful, and that is to keep a log of what you're flipping. Personally, I've been running with an Excel sheet, but since then there's been the RuneLite flipping utilities plugin that you can add, and you can do that on the sidebar through the settings. All the way at the bottom, there's a plugin hub of just tons and tons of different plugins, and there's a couple flipping tools there that'll help you kind of log what's going on with your flips. Whether you do that through the RuneLite utility, an Excel sheet, any other flipping tools, maybe you keep a little notepad. GE Tracker has some that you can use as well. We'll talk more about that in a second. But yeah, there's just so many different ways. And obviously this is to get an idea of what works for you. I mean, it's nice to be able to track your profit and how much you've made, but realistically, you should be looking at your flips and consistently kind of comparing which ones are working the best for you, so you know where you should kind of deal the most in. Then number 4, we have market dips and how you can go about this. So essentially a market dip, I'm talking about whenever gear in general drops like, you know, 10, 15%. Usually it happens pretty quick. It'll happen within 2 days or so, maybe 3 days. There will be a little bounce back once it rock bottoms, and then it might drop a little more, and eventually it'll steadily climb. really what's happening here is just people kind of panicking. Maybe there's some sort of dip that should occur a little bit, but as soon as people start to see that dip, it goes quick. And that's why I would say wait until stability, because at most you're going to probably sit out a couple days, a few days before it actually kind of bottoms. And you just don't want to be flipping stuff when it is on that free fall, because, you know, flipping, you have to buy something and you have to sell it. And if something's in a free fall, it's easy to buy. People are selling it everywhere. Is it easy to sell? No, because it's in a free fall. Everyone's probably selling it out of panic. So you're probably going to be stuck with a loss. And what I would say is just focus on quick, stable flips. Maybe there are other aspects of, you know, even armor markets. Like if this is surrounded by a PVM update and some stuff's really worthwhile to use, then maybe flip the stuff that's kind of stable because it's worth something. Or, you know, you can go to all sorts of different skilling supplies, all sorts of different clue items that probably aren't affected as much. I mean, there's just a lot of different places you could deal in. And I mean, so you just want that stability, and if you're into it, you can try to buy back all that armor whenever you think the market fully dips, because usually it does have a quick bounce back. Then tip number 5 is more about understanding yourself and how you flip. If you're someone that's going to be AFK and, you know, obviously not around your computer as much, then you're going to want to go more for return on investment. Essentially, return on investment is the percent of profit that you are getting from however much money you put into the flip initially. So really it means that it's a bigger flip proportionally to what you are putting into it. However, at the same time, most of the high ROI flips are going to take a little bit longer because they probably don't buy and sell as quick. If something had a really high return on investment and bought and sold really quick, you would be able to make tons and tons of money. And I mean, ideally, that's what you should be finding. Most of the time, you're not going to be able to though. So if you're more AFK, you want to go for the return on investment, more of the longer flips, and you know, it'll just be something that you have to get used to, because flipping's different for everyone depending on how you do it, but that's going to be more up your alley. For someone that's more focused and not as AFK, going to be around the computer more obviously, you want to go for faster flips with, you know, less return on investment, because you're going to be around, you can constantly change your offers and keep stacking up the quick flips, which is better than maybe 1 or 2 slow flips depending on the margins. Obviously this is all relative, but it's good general advice. So number 6 is one that is not a hard and fast rule, but it's one that I would say works probably about 80% of the time. And that is that selling is better than waiting. This is for whenever you have an item that has dipped. I know it's gonna hurt. You know, if you don't, you have to really evaluate the item. If it's more of a market dip, like I said earlier, and it's probably going to bounce back a little bit, then you have to decide that yourself. You have to compare how much it's dropped to how much you think it might jump back up. And just remember, time is money. So in theory, you should probably almost always sell, because if you sell that item for whatever small loss you're probably taking, you can then use that money to get other flips going and make more money, and definitely make your money back, I would say, a majority of the time. Now, sometimes you might catch yourself on a flip where you've lost so much money that if you sold, it would significantly hurt the bank. At that point, if you do think it's going to come back up, it's probably worth it to wait. But like I said, 80+% of the time, you're better off just selling and taking the lump, because if you're flipping a lot, you'll be making tons and tons of money. And flipping, while it is mostly a linear kind of progression up for a while and starts to become, I guess, a little exponential, that doesn't mean it's always going up. That doesn't mean your profits are always going to be profits. There's going to be little lumps that you're going to have to take, and that's okay. You know, you can't win them all. So you just got to know when to call it. And I would say after all these years of flipping, I've definitely held on too long sometimes in hopes that it would not. So one thing that I've learned. All right, and then a little bonus before we get to the last 2 tips. I am partnered with GE Tracker, their nice little flipping website that you can go to, and you can look up all sorts of things. The highest margins can sort by return on investment, overall flip, buying and selling quantities. You can go to all items, which is going to even include ones that don't buy and sell quick enough, but can still be profitable. And you can go on over to the high volume stuff where you can get more quicker flips. It's just a wonderful tool for for people that like to flip a lot. So if you want to check that out, feel free to in the description down below. And then with that, we'll get on to number 7. Tip 7 is undercutting. This is personal, so it's not going to be universal for everyone. Basically, if you're AFK, again, away from computer, decent bit, away from keyboard technically, but I'll say computer, then don't undercut, because undercutting incentivizes other people to undercut. And if you don't know how the grain exchange works, basically whoever has the highest offer or whoever has the lowest offer, depending on if you're selling or buying, they're the ones that have their offers go to whoever is on the opposite end of this. So if you put in an offer for the same price as someone else, both of you guys will have, you know, about a 50-50 share of those items. While if you undercut them, you would be selling or buying all of them. So you would have more of the market share of what's being sold or bought, but at the same time, if they undercut you back, then you have zero again. Like, your items aren't going to go, theirs are. So if you're going to be AFK and you can't respond appropriately if they're undercutting you, then don't undercut, because it's not in your favor. If you are focused, then I would say do undercut. Now, people get upset at people that undercut, but at the end of the day, that's just the people undercutting are the people that want it more. Nonetheless, the people that undercut, I mean, they might be scum of the earth, but they're hustling, so I get it. And then finally, if you start to get in a war with the other person that's selling or buying the item as well, and you're just undercutting back and forth, I would say just call it a truce, put your price in as their price, and just, you know, hopefully you both just sit there and share the market even. That's just how I would personally do it, and I think that's what works the best. And then finally, number 8 is one that I personally, like, just changed the game for me, and that is trying an alt account for flipping. For a long time, I was just someone that flipped every time I got done with the Slayer task, every time I just, you know, wandered on over to the Grand Exchange for whatever reason, and it is only 370k a day to upkeep an alt account for flipping. Now, depending on what you have, maybe you only have like 5 mil to flip with, that might be a decent bit. But if you have like more than 10 mil to flip with, you should be able to get 370k a day easily in like high volume flips. Like Zolworth scales, Revenant Ether, maybe some bones, runes, just things that flip really, really quick, and you could make that 370k probably in one Slayer task on the side with ease. So I would say for most people that is going to be the way to go. You know, like we said before, time is money. So if you save yourself all that time standing at the GE, that's good. And on top of that, you'll have all the extra time to be able to flip with that you wouldn't if you were, you know, out doing a skill or out doing a Slayer task. So, I mean, alt accounts are a blessing for someone that's trying to flip. So yeah, that's 8 little tips to help you with your flips. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this episode. If you guys did, make sure to leave a like. If there's anything flipping related that you'd like to see from me in the future, maybe more tips or something along those lines, feel free to let me know down below. And on top of that, if you guys want to see more videos like this as soon as they go live, make sure to subscribe. And with that said, hopefully you guys have a wonderful day, and peace.